Hello everyone. We're gonna calculate a norepinephrine infusion using the clock method. And our starting dose again will be 8 micrograms per minute. Our dose on hand will be 4 milligrams in 100 milliliter concentration. And we're going to use a 60 drop per milliliter IV and tubing infusion set. Okay, we'll start by setting up our clock. And when we set up the clock, the minutes represent drops per minute. So, 60 drops is at the top. 30 drops would be a half hour or 30 seconds of that. 15 drops. And 45. Now, when we do the clock, no matter what volume we're using, as long as we're using the 60 drop set, this will always be 1 milliliter. This will always be 0.5 milliliters. This will be 0.25 milliliters. And this is, again, regardless of the size of the IV bag that you're using. This is the volume that we're infusing with 60 drops. So we know that. I'm going to erase this because it's not something that we have to worry about for the calculation. But what is important is, like before, we don't want to just calculating drops per minute isn't going to help us that much unless we know how many drops per a lower unit of time is. So 15 drops equals 1 drop every 4 seconds. And this is constant, and we're going to stick with this because that's for this calculation, this is sort of the area we're going to be working in. So the calculation that we need to do, and you can do this ahead of time, we need to find out, since the unit of measurement is micrograms, we need to know how many micrograms of our concentration on hand are in 1 milliliter. So we're going to convert that. So 4 milligrams in 100 milliliters equals 4,000 micrograms in 100 milliliters. We're going to cross off the zeros, which gives us 40 micrograms in 1 milliliter. So, our 60 drops over here will always be, for the purposes of this calculation, 40 micrograms. This will be 10 micrograms, will be 15 drops. 1 drop every 4 seconds. 20 micrograms. This is going to be 30 drops, or 0.5 milliliters. And then over here we have 30 micrograms of norepinephrine over here. And our therapeutic range for norepinephrine is 8 to 12. Well, 10 is 15 drops. 8 is going to be slightly less than that. And so we look over here, we know that 8 micrograms is slightly less than 15 drops per minute. So our range is going to be over here. So 8 micrograms is slightly less than 15 drops per minute. We know from the last calculation it's actually 12. 12 micrograms would be slightly more than 15, which is actually 18 drops per minute. The whole therapeutic range for norepinephrine is between a drop every 3, 5, or 6 seconds. I think that's dangerous. I don't think this is a good idea. I think that it's really difficult to, even if you get the math right, it's really difficult to get that level of precision, especially when you think about the patients who are getting norepinephrine and how sick they are, and then they're going to have other problems too. So I think if we're going to do this, especially at this concentration, it should be on a pump. If we need to do math, it should be on reference cards. So anyway, so that's how to use the clock method. In the next set of videos, we will use a 250 milliliter fluid set for norepinephrine administration, which is a little bit safer. So stay tuned.